Lesson 2. From the first invention to Menlo Park. Egon Larson. Egon Larson is a well-known biographer. The lives of scientists and inventors interested him, and so he chose to write the lives of scientists and their inventions. He has the talent of attracting the attention of the readers by narrating and describing the lives of inventors as if they are imaginary stories. It is quite amazing that an author, who was excessively bad in science subjects during his student days, took to writing about inventors and inventions. With his unscientific brain, he wanted to analyze the working of the minds of scientists and found a simple method of describing their discoveries. His books have the qualities and characteristics of a fascinating short story, and so they are called the fairy stories of our times. He has developed a special technique of narrating incidents with anecdotes and dramatization of many incidents. The prescribed extract from the first invention to Menlo Park is taken from his Men Who Changed the World. The extract tells us the life of a poor and unpopular inventor Edison who acquired wealth and became popular. Contents. From the first invention to Menlo Park. The essay, From the First Invention to Menlo Park, by Egon Larson, has 3 parts. The first part. The first invention deals with Edison's appointments in various places and dismissals. His invention of vote recorder and his meeting with the chairman of the Committee of the House of Representatives are dramatically described. The second part. A cup of tea and $40,000 tell us of the free tea offered to the hungry Edison by a stranger. The concluding part of the second section gives us a humorous account of the way in which Edison encashed the check for $40,000. The last section, Marriage and Menlo Park, tells about Edison's marriage with Mary Stillwell and his setting up of a well-equipped large research laboratory in Menlo Park. Edison learnt telegraphy. Edison rescued a child from being run over by a rail wagon in the shunting yard. The child's father was the station master of Mount Clemens railway station. As a sign of gratitude, the station master was ready to help the poor Edison, who was only 15 at the time. Edison expressed his desire to learn telegraphy. He learned everything about telegraphy within 4 months. When he was 16, his name was recommended for the job of a telegraph operator on the Grand Trunk Line. Edison's experience at Stratford Junction. Edison was put on night shift at Stratford Junction, a small station in Ontario. He had to send each hour the signal 6 to the train dispatcher's office to inform that he was not asleep. The 6s came regularly from the Stratford, but one day, when he was called back, there was no response. On investigation, he was found asleep. He had designed a gadget which sent the signal every hour automatically along the line when he was asleep. Another charge on him was that he did not stop a freight train as required, and so he was dismissed from service. Edison's dismissal. Then, Edison was employed in various states, from Indiana to New Orleans and from Cincinnati to Louisville. He trained himself to become one of the fastest telegraphists in the country. Simultaneously, he was experimenting on chemicals. One day he had the misfortune of upsetting a bottle of sulfuric acid in the telegraph room, and the acid burnt a hole in a beautiful carpet in the manager's office below. The office needed only telegraphists and not inventors, and the result was that he was dismissed. Edison's experience in the Western Union Telegraph in Boston. When he was in the Western Union Telegraph in Boston, his duty was to take press cables from New York for the Boston Herald. His co-telegraphists played a trick on him and made arrangements for sending the messages by New York's fastest operator. The man in New York tried to confuse the new operator by omitting letters. At last, Edison cabled back and wanted the young man in New York to change off and send the message with his other foot. His co-telegraphists never again tried to play tricks on him. In the same office he invented a method of electrocutting to kill the cockroaches in the office. He fastened 2 pliable sheets of tin to the wall and connected them to the poles of battery. The cockroaches that came out were electrocuted. Edison's invention of vote recorder. One of his inventions was a vote recorder. This enabled voting in the House of Representatives and the Senate quicker. And it was foolproof. All that a member had to do was just to press a button and the machine would count ayes and noes. The chairman of House of Representatives in Washington stated that it was not good for the House. Edison said, "It works to perfection." The chairman replied that the vote recorder is too reliable, and so, if a party in the House wants to prevent certain bills from being adopted by majority, the party cannot question the accuracy of voting figures. The old game of filibustering, obstructing, in a legislature would be impossible. He had decided never to invent anything for which there was no demand. Edison invented the stock exchange ticker and took it to New York to find buyers. He had only $1 when he reached New York. A cup of tea and $40,000. Free tea for Edison. The 22-year-old Edison found it difficult to make both ends meet. Everybody seemed preoccupied with his own business in New York. The tall buildings and the shops full of goods depressed him. He was hungry and uncertain of his next meal. Edison threw a hungry look at a tea taster in front of him. The tea taster might have observed the hungry face of Edison and offered him a free cup of tea that was prepared from the tea of Hong Kong. That was Edison's first meal in New York. He searched for a fellow telegraphist in London, and the telegraphist could lend only $1 and arrange a place for sleep in the Gold Indicator Company. Telegraph system of Mr. Laws. The Gold Indicator Company was founded by Mr. Laws. Mr. Laws operated the gold reporting telegraphs. After the American Civil War, the value of gold and banknote fell apart. The value of paper dollar sunk rapidly and the gold dollar rocketed. Businessmen exploited the situation and made a lot of money out of it. What interested Edison was the gold exchange established in Wall Street and the simple telegraph in subscriber's office, and that could be operated from the gold exchange to indicate the rise and fall of the price of gold. Edison spent his 3 days in New York, still sleeping in the battery room at night and hunting for a job during the day. Edison employed in Mr. Law's company. Fortune smiled on Edison when the transmitter of the gold reporting telegraph refused to work. 300 messenger boys stormed into the building to complain that the tickers were out of order and their bosses suspected some trick. The superintendent was racking his head. Edison, who had been studying the transmitter for the last 3 days, offered himself to mend it. He mended it without much difficulty. The superintendent was dismissed for his lack of technical knowledge. When Mr. Laws offered Edison a job, his joy knew no bounds. After the formal interview, Edison was offered the salary of $300 a month. Edison was delighted and even feared that he would go crazy at the thought of the attractive salary. He moved to decent digs, lodging, and opened a workshop where he experiments after working hours. He was pondering over as to how to make the ticker telegraph more efficient, simpler, and foolproof. He was in the center of money juggling, but he never wanted to join the profiteers. He considered corrupt men as curious and unpleasant animals. To him, money was only the means and not an end, but money came to him in large quantities in his later life. Edison and $40,000. When Mr. Laws sold the Gold Indicator Company to the Gold and Stock Telegraph Company, Edison was asked to work out his suggestions for improving the existing ticker systems. General Lefferts was the president of Stock Telegraph Company. Edison was ready to accept even $3,000 for his invention. General Lefferts asked him, "What would you say to $40,000? These words came as near fainting as he ever got. After 3 days he was called to sign the contract and receive a check for $40,000. As Edison handed it to the cashier for encashing, the cashier asked him to sign on the back of the check. Edison was deaf and did not hear what the cashier said and thought that General Leffert was playing a trick on him. He went to General Lefferts's office and told what happened there. The general just laughed and informed that the cashier wanted only the sign of Edison. It is true that Edison was only a simpleton as far as business affairs were concerned. After encashing, he stuffed the dollars in every pocket and sat up all night at home in fear that it might be stolen. The next day the general saw the man with dollar notes in his pocket and asked him, "Ever heard of a bank account?" The man who began his life with a free cup of tea at New York earned $40,000 within a short span of life. Marriage and Menlo Park. Edison improved upon Morse's system. Edison wrote a letter to his father. He desired that his father should not work hard and he, his father, should get anything that his mother wished. His father could draw on him, Edison, for money. He had a shop in which 18 men were employed. He would set up another shop in which 150 men could be employed. Edison was called bloated Eastern manufacturer. But he did not write to his father how he worked hard at an average of 19 or even 20 hours a day. New ideas thronged his mind in a never-ending stream. At a time he was working on not less than 45 inventions simultaneously. In the years between 1870 and 1875 he was associated with telegraphy. 1. In New York, he worked out a new system which allowed 4 telegrams over the same wires at the same time. 2. He speeded up the telegrams by automatic transmission and reception. About 3,500 words a minute were cabled. 3. In collaboration with other inventors he tackled problems of transmission of ordinary Roman characters by telegraph instead of Morse dots and dashes. Morse system was a time-consuming method. Edison had improved upon Morse system and speeded up the telegram. Many young men took training in the laboratories of Edison. John Crissy, a Swiss mechanic, was one of them. Edison entrusted him with any tasks and, later on, made him superintendent of his laboratories. John Oates was another. John Oates described Edison as an ordinary young fellow, dirty as workmen, and as one dressed like a tramp. But he felt a great deal in Edison. Edison and Mary Stilwell. Edison came into contact with Mary Stilwell, a girl whom he met on his way home from the laboratory. Edison was impressed by her words and permitted her to do research in his laboratory. Mary Stilwell proved to be an efficient and effective assistant to Edison. One day during the experiment, Edison stopped and looked at Mary and tapped out a telegram in Morse code. The message was, "Having been thinking much about you lately, stop. Will you marry me? Query." She blushed and smiled, and her response was, "That would make me very happy." The sudden death of Edison's mother in April 1871 resulted in the postponement of his marriage. Edison was only 24 when he married Mary on 26 December 1871. Like many other scientists, he spent most of his time in the laboratory, taking his meals at the desk and his sleep in a chair. Mary never discouraged him. His laboratory in Menlo Park. His 70-year-old father, Samuel, once came from his birthplace, Michigan, to see his son Edison and asked him whether he had finished his invention. But Edison's reply was that he had only started his invention and wanted his father to find a place to establish a fully equipped new laboratory. Samuel Edison took 2 weeks to find a spot near the Pennsylvania Railroad, about 25 miles from New York. The name of the place is Menlo Park. The first large research laboratory was planned and built in Menlo Park, and the word Menlo Park became a household work all over the world. Edison also built a house nearby for his family. His love and devotion for research was such that he called his children Dot and Dash. They are none other than his children, Marion and Thomas Jr. Summary: Edison saved the child of a station master. As a sign of gratitude, the station master helped Edison to learn telegraphy. Edison was also recommended for the job of telegraph operator. The great scientific temperament of Edison led him to new inventions and also led him to lose his jobs at various places. His invention of vote recorder was well appreciated, but not well received by the chairman of the House of Representatives. He decided never to invent anything for which there was no demand. At the age of 22, Edison reached New York. Life became a hard nut for him, and he found it difficult to make both the ends meet. His technical knowledge helped him to get a job at Mr. Law's company. The decent salary there helped Edison to lead a decent life. Fortune favored him as he got an assignment worth $40,000. He worked, improving his inventions, especially the Morse system. When he was 24, he married Mary. With the timely help from his father, he managed to have his own lab at a place called Menlo Park. Thank you for watching. If you found this video helpful, please like, subscribe and share.